What's up everyone, Being here. Quick question for you. Have you ever played Star Dragons in Battle Spirits Saga before? It's fine if you haven't, but if you ask me, you're kind of missing out. Set 4 has changed the archetype in a few ways that makes the deck extremely versatile, very competitive, and also just so much fun to play. I guess I should be more specific and ask if you've been playing Ira, especially after seeing some of the lists that came from the preseason Grand Tours over the last couple of weekends. But still, over the last couple of weeks in locals, online, even in an online tournament, I've played about 30 games of Star Dragons, and it has been the most fun I have ever had playing this game, in also the most rewarding way possible. I'm going to show you the deck that I've been playing, but at the same time it's worth noting that you can find success with Ira in many different ways. Pretty much straight Star Dragons is what has been my poison lately, but the preseason Grand Tour has shown us that there are no shortage of ways to find success with this deck. And it really just comes down to how you are going to enjoy playing the deck. Saying that one of these is better than the others doesn't really feel right, and I kind of think that's the reason why I'm the most excited about it right now. Now look, please don't take this as me punching down on yellow players who are probably really feeling it right now. Red is just my favorite color. It's the first color that I found success with, but at the same time it has this high risk, high reward playstyle that doesn't feel like you're relying entirely on luck, which again comes back to why I feel like it's been a very rewarding deck for me to play. I mentioned earlier that Ira has this versatility to it, and that's largely in the early game where these decks differ. To be expected, the top end looks quite similar between these decks, but I wanted to show you guys these lists because it's so cool to me that despite the early game approach being completely different between a lot of these lists, they're essentially all trying to do the same thing. Yeah, let's take a look. So let's start with my deck. So as far as early game goes, we have Dino Man, because it's just a great red card, it's a great defensive card, it's a great aggressive card, and it comes down for cheap. And it's a great turn 1 play if we don't happen to come up on a Nexus, which we're going to talk about Nexuses in a little bit. But additionally we have Andromedios, which acts as a double reduction when it comes to summoning other Star Dragons, and then it's when the Spirit Attacks effect allows us to dig through our deck to reveal more Star Dragons to keep playing. It's a starter deck card. Crazy that cards like this are still showing up. I love it. But then we also play Horn General Tricera Warrior. It's a 5-cost 3 reduction, so it can actually still come down pretty cheap for 1 core. It has Confront, so it allows us to kind of chip away at our at our opponent's board, and then because we're running 4 of it, losing it never really feels like we're losing a win condition either, because we can kind of cycle through them, maybe with Volcanic Canyon. If a couple go to the bottom of the deck with Andromedios or Ancient Draw, that's fine. And if we lose it off of a Deadly Balance, if we have to lose it off of a Deadly Balance, then that's fine too, because we have 4, chances are we're going to see another one. The next deck that I want to look at is Yami. Yami got 2nd place down in Texas, and I believe also won the online tournament a couple weeks ago. I actually played them, and in the mirror match, they saw all 4 Iras before I saw even one, so that was not great. But as from an early game perspective, is running only Andromedios, because this is pretty much just a pure Star Dragon deck. So you're pretty much always going to have your double reduction off of Andromedios, and when you attack and cycle through your deck to search for more Star Dragons, you're very likely going to pull something out, which is very good. Now, the winner down in Texas actually ended up playing a Smag deck with Ira at the top end here. This rams with Matingle and Australra and Smag and Allrain just to get a bunch of cores, and then what this deck also does well with, because it plays Beldegor or just a ton of 3-drops, is that it allows you to fill the board with these cheap spirits to then play Ira and turn these cards, otherwise dead cards maybe in the later game, into card draw, which is very cool. It's a very cool way to utilize Ira. Next, we'll look at the winner in UK, which was Harry from the Nexus podcast. Harry uses the Fire Elemental Ruby is here to put down as a free reduction on board. This card just acts as a ton of great card draw for Ira. If you core it up, it can draw an additional card, which is great. He's also running Dino Man because Dino Man can be played for as little as 1 core. And then Blazing Boar, which I thought was an interesting addition because it's an excellent response to the Deadly Balance meta, which allows you to grab something out of the trash. So from an early game perspective, I think this is great. Also, Blazing Boar is a 4 cost, so it's acts as something to play Ira off of. You get it from the trash, and then you just immediately ascend off of this. The last 2 that we'll look at, there were a couple decks from Sydney. One was a Smag deck, and we've already seen a Smag deck, but this one was like a red mid-range deck from set 3, obviously with some changes. But this one is running Bearded Eagle. It's a 3 cost 3 reduction, so it can potentially come down for free, but it's also using Hippocampo as a way to ramp additional cores as well. And then we have main deck Masters deck, which is running Worker Ant-Man as a way to ramp additional cores. So if there are any themes that we can take away from this, it's that a successful Ira deck has a few things. One is red reduction. Obviously, that's pretty straightforward, but the reduction doesn't always easily stay on board, especially in this meta where Tiger can bottom deck stuff, Hydra will just immediately blow it up, and Purple will just outright kill it. Rubius is fantastic for adding reduction to an empty board for free. Love the addition here. Again, Dino Man can come down for as little as 1 core, which is great, and Bearded Eagle can come down for free. Nexuses are obviously important, but in the mirror matchup can be pretty difficult to stay on board. In my opinion, Nexus variety is very important. Double Volcanic Canyon just doesn't feel great because you're having to trash 2 cards just for drawing 3 every single time. So some of the ones that I've really liked are Temple of the Sunstone, which helps against aggro matchups, which is super relevant right now because of how good white aggro is. But at the same time, this allows us to draw a card when our Ascendant Spirit connects with our opponent's life, and a lot of decks are running 6 to even as much as 8 Ascend Spirits, so you're very likely going to have some opportunity to be able to draw a card off of something like this. So I like this one. And then obviously we have the red mid-range deck with Trident Dragon and Ruby Sanctuary. Ruby Sanctuary being the cheapest Nexus to put down, the most cost-effective. So yeah, we can't entirely rule this one out as a good Nexus. And then instead of running red reduction, we can instead run out of color ramp, which is proving to be very good, right? So in these Smag decks, they are essentially printing cores in real time. Worker Ant-Man showing up proves that it really was just the set 2 MVP, and Hippocampo over here is, yeah, keeping the set 3 and mid-range deck alive, I think both in game and in the meta, which is really interesting. But something that all of these decks have in common are cheap spirits that you're willing to kill off with your own Ira. It adds so much card draw instead of relying on things like Andromedios and Ancient Draw to filter through your deck. Smag does this very well with just the amount of cheap spirits that it has. Again, Rubius, especially in the late game, Rubius essentially just trades a card, or even potentially 2 with its 1 destroyed effect. It just trades the card from your hand to 1 from your deck. So very, very good here. But having the card draw come from your own spirits allows you to play Ira more aggressively instead of waiting for it to make the most impact on your opponent's board, which is probably why people are running, you know, as much as 4 copies of this card. I'm obviously very excited about the spot that red is in, but what makes me even more excited about it is that it doesn't seem to have this cookie cutter approach to it. I've shown you many different ways that Ira can be successful, but it seems that there's really no end to the ways that you can play this deck, and I think that's the reason why I'm so high on it right now. Once you look at some of the decks as a whole, it may only seem like there's a few different changes, but if you've ever played Smag or played against Smag, then you know it's going to play completely differently than something like my deck here with Dino Man and Dricera Warrior and Andromedios, right? They both are trying to get through their decks as quickly as possible. They're just taking completely different approaches to doing so. At the same time, the Ira decks from the UK seem to focus on how to rebuild a board. So instead it kind of plays based off more what its own board looks like rather than what its opponent's does. Sometimes you just have to play into traps like Nemesis and Counter Sword, and these decks have some really great tech to recover from some of those plays. Anyway, that's the video for today. I hope you enjoyed me going on about my favorite archetype in set 4, and I hope you give it a shot because I do think it is one of the most enjoyable decks out there right now. Even in matches that I've lost, it has taught me valuable information about how to play the deck, which in turn has me seeking out other people to play and then learn even more about my deck or other ways to play it. It really is a ton of fun, and I think you'll enjoy it too. Thanks for watching, everyone. Be safe, be happy, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.